Hey, this is JJ Virgin. Welcome and thanks so much for joining me. This is Ask the Health Expert. Here I put the power of health in your hands and give you access to the top people in health and wellness. In each episode, I share safe ways to get healthy, lose weight, heal your gut, detox, and lots more. So if you want to get healthy and get off the dieting for life merry-go-round, I'll give you strategies that will help you look and feel better fast. All right, you know how much I love talking about muscle. I am determined to get it out there that we got to forget the whole aging gracefully thing, and that we, and especially we, us women, need to be focused on building muscle. And we got to say all of us, I'm on my husband too for doing this. And we go to the gym together. I'm like, lift heavy weights. So you're going to hear more about that today. I've got the fitness physician with me. I've got Dr. Eric Fete. He is the founder of Prime X Cellular Nutrition and Fitness, and kind of was a recovering ER doc that went down the rabbit hole of age management and hormones and peptides, and really landed on bottom line is all these things are fantastic and start with diet and exercise. And I'm like, you're my man. So we're going to be digging into all that and talking a little bit about peptides. So if you haven't heard about them, you can start the understanding of them. They're pretty cool. We've been using some of them. He is a graduate of Miami University. He's got a bachelor's in microbiology, his medical degree from the Chicago College of Osteopathic Medicine, and he's certified by the Age Management Medicine Group in Age Management Medicine. So very interesting conversation that's going to give you the whys you should be doing these things and some hows as well. I always like to make things super actionable. And you will be able to grab his muscle growth guide at jjvirgin.com/Dr. Eric, DRERIC, and I will be right back with Dr. Eric, so stay tuned. Dr. Eric Fete, it's Fete, right? It's Fete. Fete. I'm super excited to have you here. I was sniffing around on your website, and I go, guy talking about, doc talking about building muscle for women over 40. Come on in. So happy to have you here.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate being on. Looking forward to it.
Sure. So how'd you get interested in that specifically? Tell me a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, I'll give you the somewhat short story. So a long time ago, I was kind of on the other end of medicine. I was an ER doctor, and I did that for many years. And I was kind of on the sick care side of medicine model, right? And I loved it. It was great for some time, but I was told by a wiser, older physician always to have a plan B. So I was always looking for other things. I've kind of had an entrepreneurial mindset, so I was always looking for that plan B. So, and then I kind of started seeing, the people, kind of what we're seeing now, the sick care model of medicine where people are just ill. And I saw a lot of people that were quite young and, on a laundry list of medications and disabled and having surgeries, and all these things could have been prevented with a healthier lifestyle and some better choices and simple things instead of, being disabled at 30 on a list of meds and getting surgery and, not able to exercise and having all these issues that a 90-year-old person should be having. I thought, God, this could be prevented, shouldn't it? Right. So, and ER and surgery, it's great for when there's bad things happening, but for prevention and nutrition, fitness, it's kind of lacking. So I started looking into that a little bit. I deviated a bit. I was doing some other things, and I had a partner. We had a cosmetic surgical clinic. So we did a lot of varicose veins, aesthetics, skincare, Botox fillers. Started getting to stem cell treatments where we do utilizing PRP and stem cells for rejuvenation of joints, muscle, sexual dysfunction, things of that nature. And then I got into hormones, kind of branched off from there, started doing hormone optimization therapy, and trained, learned, got certified, did a ton of training for that for years. And then I kind of branched off and got into the whole world of anti-aging. That's when I got hooked up with the world of peptides. So I kind of combined my practice with a mix of things. So more kind of like the cellular medicine model. It's like a mix of functional medicine, personalized medicine, and just overall wellness medicine, I guess. So kind of treating the body at the cellular level. So we use a mix of a base of nutrition, fitness, lifestyle medicine, of course, functional aspects, and And then, of course, we get into the things like hormone optimization, peptide therapies, signaling molecules, small molecules, supplements, and all that. So kind of combine that. And, we try to get together with, like, you go to conferences, meet up, have mastermind groups with a bunch of other docs around the world. And, we collaborate, and it's just fun talking. We're always learning. As you know, there's a million things, we're always learning. We never know it all. Every day I learn more and more what I don't know. So that's kind of how I got into it. And so my tagline is Dr. Eric, the fitness physician, the muscle doc. So I kind of focus on everything, but definitely on the fitness side, because I think a lot of people, as you mentioned, women especially, just kind of forget about muscle, and they don't want to build muscle. And as we get older, we lose it. And it's not just for looks, it's an endocrine organ, and it's very important for not just function, but our longevity and our overall health and our metabolism. And, if you can fix that, we can fix pretty much everything else. So that's kind
I'm
of
giving you an amen there. This is like, I like the biggest thing I've been out talking about is forget aging gracefully, age powerfully, and go lift some heavy weights. And even, I started out as an exercise physiologist 35 plus years ago, and women were so afraid to lift weights because they'd get big. I'm like, you're not getting big.
You're going to get bulky.
You're not going to get big. Way back then, God, Marion Nestle was at Tufts doing research, and she was like, every time women lift weights, they get smaller because it just I called it metabolic spanks. But I feel like that message is still not out there. In fact, you still hear people say, well, if you want to lose weight, you should just do all the cardio first, lose the weight, and then put on the muscle. I'm like, no, backwards.
No. Yeah.
So I would love you to dig into this. First of all, why? Let's just start with the foundational basics, because the fact that you're using, when you started to list all the things you did, and you started first with fitness and nutrition, had me jumping up and down. That's fantastic. But why is muscle so important?
So muscle is massively important, and it's the foundation. We think of, anytime, it's kind of like building a house. You have to start with the foundation, and everybody thinks, well, obviously your bones, right? But your muscles, it's the framework of everything. And it's important, of course, structurally, to obviously enable you to move and function and exercise and live a good life, etc. But that's kind of where most people stop thinking about it. They're like, oh, I don't care. I'm okay. I don't want to get bulging muscles. I don't need a six pack. I'm fine where I'm at. But unfortunately, the reason it's so important is as we get older, we lose it. And a lot of people are like, as you mentioned, are like, well, I need to lose weight. I know I want to live longer. I want to live better. Well, that's one of the keys, because sarcopenia, or muscle loss, is a massive key to aging well or aging not well. And if you have sarcopenia, you're not going to age well, and you're going to get osteopenia, or bone loss, hip fracture. You can fall, get hip fractures, lose your balance and fall and injure yourself, and many other things. And on top of that, muscle is the largest endocrine organ in the body. It is massively involved with your overall metabolism. Again, women men want to lose weight. They want to improve your blood sugar metabolism. Everybody's worried about insulin resistance. Everybody's talking about fasting and diabetes and blood sugar. Well, muscle is intimately involved with that. The more muscle you have, the better you're going to be in that regard. You're going to improve your insulin sensitivity, shuttle blood sugar so you can eat your carbs, and it goes to your muscle. It doesn't go to your belly and go to your liver where it's not supposed to go. And you can eat the things you want to eat. You don't have to be on a starvation diet. You can eat well and fuel those muscles. So instead of focusing on getting smaller, focus on building up your muscles, and then everything else will fall into place.
Amen. I love hearing that so much. It's, when you look at this, if you just, I want to reframe the way we look at scales, because I know there was the little card, I don't know if you saw it, Eric, that came out that people could hand to their doctor that said, don't weigh me, it triggers me. And I thought, no one would walk into their doctor and say, don't take my blood pressure, it triggers me. Or
Right.
don't do a blood test, it triggers me. And
Right.
the fact that we've got, we are missing what we're getting there as information. And I think the big challenge is, I think of total weight like total cholesterol, not meaningful. No reason, what do you do with that information? And if we could instead have people go in, get on a scale, identify both visceral adiposity, where's the bad fat hanging out around your organs, and then muscle mass, fat-free mass, and really focus on getting optimal fat-free mass first, just like what you just said, it would change everything. Because you hear all the time, I need to boost my metabolism. I'm like, well, then put on muscle.
On muscle. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's costly. You want expensive. You want to have an expensive body, and muscle is expensive. It's going to use a lot of calories to stay on there. And just like you said, and I was just interviewing my friend Dr. Beverly Yates, she's like, muscle's just a blood sugar sponge, so it's a way better place for you to be able to store carbs than to have to turn it into fat and store it on your belly. Wouldn't you rather have it in there stored for energy to use next time?
Yeah, everybody wants to lose weight and they dread going on a diet because then I have to give this up and give that. Well, if you train your muscles, you don't have to give it up. You can have your cake and eat it too, literally, and be fine and actually look better than
I remember early on, I was reading I was in grad school. It was like probably 30 years ago. And they were doing, and everything back then was about long, slow distance. You had to do at least 30 minutes of cardio. Otherwise, don't bother because you wouldn't get the fat burning zone. All this ridiculous, damaging stuff that was coming out, and that you had to create this caloric deficit and all these things. And there are two studies that came out, and they couldn't explain either one. And I think now in the light of day, they're pretty obvious. One of them showed that people who tried to maintain their weight by aerobic exercise alone, like if they skipped a day of aerobic exercise, what would happen? They gained weight, right? Because they were losing muscle, not building it, by doing all that long, slow distance aerobics. And then if they didn't do it for a day, their body was so used to using that amount of calories, and that's the amount of calories they ate. And guess what? They gained weight. And then they did another study where they gave people, they had two different groups. One was supposed to exercise 30 minutes a day in one fell swoop. The other was supposed to do it in 3 sets, 10 minutes each. And the 3 sets, people improved across the board. They lost weight, they had better heart, cardiovascular fitness. And what they discovered was those people that were doing the 10 minutes, well, you either did 30 or you didn't do it at all, but the 10-minute people were doing it harder.
Yeah.
Right? So, I mean, it's pretty clear information out there. So how important is it, like, in terms of putting on muscle and really thinking? I think the way to flip this and reframe it, I love what Peter Attia talks about when he talks about the centenarian decathlon and like training for how you want to be when you're 100 and what activities you want to be able to do. Like, how important is it to be focused on this in your 40s, 50s, and 60s?
Yeah, very much so. The younger, the better. Kind of, finishing off on the topic we were just discussing, the last part of that kind of ties into this is that with muscles, it's, as we mentioned about the metabolism, but muscles also secrete a lot of myokines, which are those cytokines that are produced by the muscle, which have numerous benefits on the body, such as BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor, which helps with the brain, prevention of cognitive dysfunction, helps your bones stay strong, help produces cytokines like IL-6, et cetera, that could be helpful for metabolism and handling insulin, handling blood sugar, helps with liver health, and so many other things that unless you're stimulating that muscle and growing that muscle, you're not going to get those myokines, and then your entire health is going to suffer. So all these things that people are worried about, getting a fatty liver, getting Alzheimer's or getting fat or getting a weak hip, those are going to happen. So again, and the further along that path you are, the harder it's going to be to gain that back. So if you could start focusing on this, the earlier the better. The 20s,
now, right now, wherever you are.
Tomorrow,
Yeah.
So
not tomorrow. Now.
So
I've worked too long in diet pills or in diet, the diet world, and it's like if I say tomorrow, I know what happens. Nothing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I think that's really important to note that, like, you do not want to put this off at all. I was looking at some research that was showing kind of the risk people have 65 plus in terms of accidents and what happens when they break a hip and what happens when they fall, and some of those signalers of like longevity are the ability to like stand and balance on one leg. I did it this morning in yoga, and being able to get up off the floor, how important these things are that we just you don't think about till it's too late. I used to work in Palm Springs, and I remember a woman came to me in her 80s, and her whole reason she wanted to work out was so she could wear her high heels and go up and down the stairs. And I'm like, that's awesome.
That's what motivates.
Wish we thought about it a little bit sooner. So what are your big tips then, since, clearly we want to build muscle, and that will help have stronger bones, and that will help like with brain health big time and all these things. What are your tips then for working out? Like, what's the regimen?
Well, as you know, there's a million regimens, so it's just a question of finding what works for you. But in today's crazy society, I always start with the foundational stuff, right? Sleep and stress. I call it the double S, like the superhero. You got to get that, your recovery, your sleep and stress dialed in. Because if you're stressed out and you're only sleeping 5-6 hours, it doesn't matter what kind of workout regimen, you're going to suffer. So we got to, you got to, I always tell everybody, train hard, but recover harder, so focus on your recovery, get your all your ducks in a row, make sure you're sleeping, etc. And that takes time and it takes work. And then start hitting it. And, for me, the simpler, the better. So, if someone's new, that's a whole protocol versus someone who's experienced. But as you mentioned earlier, just hit the weights, lift some heavy shit, like you talked about. Just get in and do a basic strength training protocol, something very simple. Maybe just start out with a whole body routine, 3 days a week, and walk, the rest of the days, and then slowly sprinkle in some other yummy goodness, like for like.
Well, someone just starting out, and just going in, they would go into the gym, not they go, I don't know what you're talking about. So just a basic, what are some of the basic things that you would have them do, you'd recommend for them?
Yeah. So if they're like a total newbie, just start them out, again, depending on their overall health and any health issues, but, walk every day. Everybody knows that, right? Just walk every day. And then maybe I'd start them out 2 days a week, just do a basic strength, a push, a pull, a leg, kind of thing. Okay, get on the ground. I'll show you how to do a push-up. Or if you have a gym, go do some type of pressing movement, do some type of pulling movement, like a row, do some like a pull down, or probably won't be able to do a chin up. So get on the machine and do a pull down, and then a hinge or a squat type movement. If all they can do is squat up and down with their body weight, if that's all they can do, that's a good place to start. And then slowly add the weight and just build from there. Start with keep it super simple. Otherwise they're not going to do it.
Right. Well, here's what you said that's really important, because I find people, you'll see people in the gym and you see them doing bicep curls, and then they'll go do calf raises. And I'm like, stop that. Those are the vanity ones that if you have time at the end and you're want to finish the podcast you're listening to, go ahead. But the big focus should be these multi-joint exercises. So you talked about pushing and pulling and hip hinging. And so a simple thing like a push-up that if you had to, you could start against the wall, then go to a bench, right? Then go on your bent knees. You can just keep changing it up till you can do it on the floor on your toes. And it might take 6 months to get there. It's fine. And then you talked about a pull down or a bent or a row, which is another fantastic one. I love bent over rows because they mimic so many things. There's so many times in life you have to bend over and grab something. And, and I love the fact that you really talked about things that were not machine-based, that they were free-based, because then you pull in the balance part too and much more of your core. Because I had a friend say this once, he goes, yeah, we're not bolted to the floor. So but you get so much more bang for your metabolic buck when you go do exercises using either cables or free weights or body weight, and you're doing multi-joint movements because you're crossing, you're pulling in more muscles. So love all that. Are you telling, in terms of how many repetitions, that kind of stuff, what's your advice there?
Yeah, for sure. So compound movements, like you mentioned, are the key. It's building that, not just building muscles, but getting stronger. As you mentioned, the longevity studies indicate loss of strength, spirals down even faster than loss of muscle size. And that correlates with longevity, grip strength, picking, like you mentioned, getting off the ground. So those big compound movements are great. And again, start with something simple. Maybe just do 2-3 sets of 5 to 6 reps, or 5 to 7 reps, somewhere in that strength kind of borderline, quote unquote, hypertrophy range. We all know we can get hypertrophy with any rep range, any weight, depending on how many you do. But I think for overall strength, a lot of people talk about the 5x5 protocol. We're doing 3 sets of 8, 3 sets of 10, something like that. Totally fine. Wherever you can start with. And as you mentioned, I like to do something they can do anywhere where they have access to a gym. Oh, I don't have a gym membership. Okay, well, you can do it at home, right? You push up, you can grab a heavy paint can or something and do a row, right? So just start simple, do 2 or 3 sets of, 10 reps, keep it simple, and then kind of build from there. And then I'll talk to them about, mixing it up, do high reps, low reps, different, mixing up undulating periodization, things like that. So just start, and then we'll build.
Tell you one thing I got to be a big fan of that I think was the biggest solution during the pandemic that probably got ignored is those TRX trainers.
Yeah, those are great.
Those are that is now my solution if I'm traveling and I don't know where I'm going, because especially during the pandemic, you'd go somewhere and the gym would be closed. I'm like, you've got to be kidding me,
So, what do I do now? Yeah.
Yeah, it's now what do I do? So this TRX trainer, if you haven't seen this is a great thing that you can
Those are
travel
awesome.
with. They're amazing. Yeah. So I have one hanging out on my tree. I have one in my home gym so that I can, and I use it at the gym too. So you can do a lot to mess around with that because you do want to keep mixing it up. Now let's talk, because you always hear that your biceps are built in the kitchen. So let's talk about how now fitness and nutrition, get together here to make a difference, and what you're seeing, especially in terms of looking at, building muscle and longevity, what you recommend.
Yeah, for sure. I think the biggest thing is, again, I like to keep it simple, just a whole food diet. And as like I think we talked about this when we first jumped on, a lot of people, men included, but definitely women, just don't eat enough darn protein to build the muscle. And that's crucial. You got to have the foundation, you got to have the building blocks to build it. So, whole foods based diet, keep it super simple, load up your plate with some vegetables and a big slab of meat and maybe a side of something else, some healthy fats, and you're good to go. So a lot of people, I get full, I can't eat that much protein. So I love, not that I'm a meal replacement guy, but if you need to, I think protein shakes are a great way to supplement protein.
I'm a huge protein shake person.
Yeah,
I think they are the best thing to start, especially women off in the
it's so easy to do.
first meal. And the more I'm looking, I just listened to Gabrielle Lyon's mentor. I'm trying to remember his name, but he talked about really bookending your protein, and those, the first meal and the last meal being the most important, really, for especially that morning one triggering mTOR, which we should talk about. And I just find a protein shake and then adding in some extra collagen is just a good way to ensure, especially for women, that they get what they need.
Yeah, protein shakes are awesome for women because they don't like eating a big, huge 10-ounce ribeye.
Well, I do, but
3 times a day. Yeah, some women do. Yeah, my wife does. So yeah, doing a protein shake, I love them. I think they're great, and they can be supplement, and they can be helpful for fat loss too, depending on how you time it. But it's just an easy way to slam a couple of those throughout the day, and if you do it right, you can be halfway to your goals, and then you add in your meals, and it makes it so much easier.
So what are you doing for protein recommendations? Because it's so interesting in the nutrition world. Because if you look at what's out there, pretty much people don't talk about protein. It's just a static thing. The only argument on protein is whether it's plant-based or animal. And then everything is the fight over how much carbs and fat. And I'm like, really, I think everything should be built around protein. Like protein's first, you build around that. And so you won't not be able to eat your protein because you ate your protein and veggies first. Whatever else you can fit in, great, but that's the important thing. So what are your recommendations on protein? How much should someone have?
Yeah, so what people typically talk about is gram per pound of body weight, right? And of course that's based on your lean body mass. And again, you talk to someone, especially a woman, they're like, oh my God, that's a lot of protein. So, I think some of the other here's some studies that have come out showing you can dial that down to a little bit, maybe to 0.8, 0.9, gram per pound. So you convert that to kilograms, it's that typical 1.7 to 2.1 grams per kilogram if you want to convert it into kilograms. But they've done a lot of studies on, especially for fat loss, and dialing up even higher. You're going up to 2.5, almost 3 grams per kilogram, especially for fat loss. So if you could do it, and you're definitely going to be supplementing protein shakes because that's a lot of protein. So, but again, keep it simple. If you just shoot for that gram per pound, that's an easy number. Most people are not going to hit that, but if you can get damn close to it, then that's a good place to start, and then build everything else around that. Keep it simple.
Well, and here's what's easy about that is if you start there and build around it, rather than do it as so often it was like your protein should be the deck of cards. It's like the condiment. I'm like, well, what if it was it was the star of the show, right? Right. And you frame it. It should be the star of the show. And I mean, the research is pretty darn clear with it, and especially. And there's two things I'd love to talk about is especially with what happens as we age with anabolic resistance, and then with that first meal and really triggering mTOR. So, and the issue with mTOR and potentially plant-based proteins. So, anabolic resistance. What's your take on that and what we need to do there? Just push more protein or what?
Yeah, it's funny. I just did like a multi-part video and podcast on anabolic resistance. So,
I'm so glad you're here.
All right, so check out my podcast, my YouTube channel. I put it on there, but I did multiple videos. But in a nutshell, yes, I think number one, as with everything, is just prevention. Right? It's not just a gorge fast, eat tons of protein and a whole pizza and just eat as much as you can. That's where a lot of, especially guys, get into trouble. They're doing their bulking phase, right? And then they eat too much, and then you get some issues in the cell, and you get issues in the liver. And then it spirals out of control. So I think,
and we're talking about women. We're talking about having 8 to 10 ounces of wild salmon instead of 4 to 6.
right,
They're not having salmon on a pizza, just so you know.
no, exactly. Women, I think, women tend not to have much of a problem with this. It's usually the guys that are trying to bulk, the bodybuilder dudes. So yeah, I think just playing it smart, as we talked about, make the protein the cornerstone. Make sure you're getting all your other nutrients with, big slab, big piece of meat, your vegetables, and balancing it out. And in terms of mTOR,
well, wait. Let's just because I threw it out there and I realized I didn't define it. Define what anabolic resistance is for our audience so they understand why they need to do this.
Sure. Yeah. So basically what can happen is if you overdo it and eat too darn much or too much of the wrong things, what can happen is your body doesn't like that very much. You tend to start putting on weight, and then you kind of get into a plateau where you are putting on weight, but now you're starting to put a lot of fat in addition to muscle. And then your workouts you're kind of stagnating, and you're getting flat, and you're getting tired, and you're like, what's going on here? I'm eating more. I should be working hard, and you're not. And you start getting fat and you're getting tired. So basically your body is telling you like, whoa, slow down, dude. You're put on the brakes. You're eating too many calories. You're not recovering enough. There's other reasons too. And then it starts to accumulate. You get too much, basically caloric intake, and you're starting to spill it into your liver. You're getting a fatty liver. It's just spilling into your cells. So the bottom line is it's basically you're kind of think of it as overstuffing your pillow. You're getting way too much in there, and your body's just telling you to slow the heck down and back it off a little bit.
Yeah. And I don't think most women do this. The one important thing for us women to understand is that unless you are just starting out, you're not fit at all. But once you've been working out for a while, you either have a choice. You're either building muscle or you're losing fat, but you're not doing the both together. So when you're putting on muscle, you are going to increase your intake some, especially of protein, and you might see your weight go up a little bit. For sure. And for a woman, that is a freak out. But here's the big important thing. And I say this, I'm working on my next book, Eric. So I started messing around with this, and I knew I wanted to put on a little bit more muscle. And I watched my weight go up. And then I had to have this whole mental game of and I have a $5,000 bioimpedance scale at home. So I was testing everything, but I'm like, it's still the mental thing that we women have, my clothes are looser. But it's the way. So it's really important for you to understand that you're probably going to have to up your calories, up your protein. You may see your weight come up a little bit, and quite often your weight comes up and your clothes size goes down, right? But even if you wanted to say lose overall weight, I always said, do you want to lose weight or size? Because if you want to get your clothing size down, it might require adding a little bit of weight, more muscle, but then it will also adjust. But the first focus would be muscle. So there's that. Let's talk mTOR.
Yeah, so mTOR is great. Everybody thinks of it as a double-edged sword, right? Because you can have too much mTOR stimulation. So mTOR is just one of these many cellular processes inside the cell that triggers muscle growth. Now, mTOR is involved in other things in the cell too, cell proliferation, differentiation, meaning making your cells do what they're supposed to do: build, grow, heal, recover. It's involved in other metabolic functions too. And there's actually two subtypes of mTOR, but I'm not going to get into that. But the basic mTOR, what most people think of, yes, muscle growth. And then, of course, you hear the other side that, oh my gosh, mTOR is bad. You're going to get cancer. You're going to have all these bad things happen to you, which, yeah, if you go crazy, you can. But a very nice, easy way to do it is, again, everything is balanced, right? If you balance everything out and you have your recovery cycles and you're not going through these constant feeding, bulking cycles, you're going to be fine. And you mentioned collagen earlier. I love collagen because, it used to be that, okay, we got to do some protein restriction or take days where you're not eating a lot of protein to balance it out. You don't have to do that. And if you just do collagen and get those other amino acids, that's going to balance out that excess of methionine, which is the most common amino acid in meats and protein powders that's going to cause mTOR stimulation. And you can get a balance of that and get all the longevity benefits without that excessive mTOR. So you're going to get the best of both worlds. So again, with everything, it's all about the balance. So if you're doing what we talked about, you're going to be fine. And you have to stimulate mTOR to grow muscle. You absolutely have to.
Right. And you're cycling it. You don't eat, you have a great overnight fast, then it comes down, then you eat, then you do a workout, you have some protein, it comes up, it helps you build muscle. So I think it's important, with everything, too much insulin bad, no insulin, you're done. So all these things we need. It's really important. And you talked about at the beginning of this, you talked about recovery. So I'd like to circle back to that because I feel like that's still a kind of a missing piece that people, as they tend to start to get into working out, it's like more is better. It's like, well, no, not really, So like, what's your recommendation here on, and you talked about sleep and like, how does someone know if they're really getting good sleep? What are you doing on the stress side? What are your recommendations for recovery?
Yeah, that's a huge topic. We could talk for hours about
I
this.
know.
Actually, I'm getting ready to launch a whole lifestyle course. I'm going to have, and I'm dealing with all these things one by one too. So that's good, perfect timing. But yes, I always tell everybody, as I talked about, train hard, but recover harder. I mean, and it's so easy to not do that. I mean, I've worked with a lot of trainers and very well-known, social media celebrities who are fitness trainers are known all over the country. And there's a couple that I worked with that they themselves, I coached and I worked with them, and they were overtraining, and I had to pull them back, and they know better, right? We all know better, but we can still do it. So it's, if they're doing it, mom and, Joe and Sally in the gym are probably doing it too. So yes, the mantra, especially, here in America, we're always like, go harder, 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 right? Work out more, go to Orange Theory, go do CrossFit, sleep 4 hours, go do it again. Right. And that just, you're going to hit a wall. So I think, especially if you're starting out, just make sure you're recovering, work out hard, take the next day off or something easy, just alternate it, just keep it simple, and if the other thing I tell people is just go by, and it's hard to learn, right? But you have to learn how to listen to your body. And it's so hard to do because, okay, today is whatever, leg day, and I have it in my head. But if you didn't sleep good the night before, you're stressed, you got to fight with your spouse and you're just not feeling it, well, you'll know, and don't do it. Do something else. Don't push through. Or if you start a workout, and if in the first 5 minutes you're not feeling better, you're starting to feel worse, then you need to stop or do something else. You need to learn to listen to your body. And that's that whole auto regulation. And that's hard. And it takes practice. I mean, I still catch myself doing that. I'm like, oh, I'm going to do this. I have this workout in my head.
Do it anyway.
I'm going to do it. And I'm like, oh, no. Practice what you preach. Listen, dude, you're not feeling it, or something's.
Well, what's great is I was like, I don't know if I was trying to see if you had an Aura ring on, but I kind of tag team my Aura ring and my Apple Watch, and they'll now you have to listen to them because they'll say, hey, looks like you need to take a rest day today. And I'm like, you might think so, but I'm not doing it. But
I'm not listening to your ring.
Yeah, you be quiet. I'm shutting the app off. But it is good to see that because it will be like, oh yeah, okay, I'll just lighten my load today or do something easier. And I think, it's a big shout out for why we need to mix things up. My husband and I have incorporated, I'm not going to say I like this, okay, because I do not, but we do hot yoga. We do hot yoga twice a week when we're in town. I literally count the minutes. I go, oh, I'm 10 minutes in. I'm 1/6 of the way through. It's a whole mental game. Like I'm,
That's very
but it's so, it's like, but the more we can do different things as well than just lift, I'll default and go throw heavy weights around all day long. And then it's like,
that's a sign you need more of that, right? That's, my wife is the same way. She hates yoga because she can't turn this off up here. Right. I'm like, that's why you need it, because you need to do
exactly. I got yelled at in yoga. In fact, they put a sign on the door now. So I'm in yoga and I had the best idea. And I thought, I'm going to forget it. And I had this whole inner dialogue going on. I'm going to forget it. No, you won't forget it. And so I'll just make a little note she won't see. Grab my phone to make this little note. And sure, like she had 6 cents, beelines over to me. Put your phone down, And I was like going, now there's a little sign on the door, no cell phones. Like, oh, God, really? So
now you did it.
But I have ideas. She's like, bring a notepad. I'm like, what is the difference between a notepad and a cell phone? It's still the same. It's still the same stuff. Yeah, it is exactly that. You tell your wife that's why she needs it. She has to do it.
That's fair enough.
All right, perfect. I would love to address one more thing, and we'll just kind of touch on it because I think it's a really fascinating area, is this area of peptides and what peptides can do. And I just love you to just give a quick primer on what the heck are peptides, someone looking into them, what might they be looking for? What are some of the opportunities for someone with peptides in terms of recovery, anti-aging, all of that?
Peptides are great. Yeah, I as I mentioned, I got into that after I combined that with the hormones as needed. As I try to fix everything naturally, and anything that's free or cheap, we'll start with that. Lifestyle and training, and then we'll add on the other stuff.
Well,
So
don't you agree? I think that you should not be allowed. I think unless you do diet and exercise, you don't get to have the hacks. Like to me, biohacking should only be, and once you're doing diet and exercise and sleep and stress management, then you can start to do it. But it's absolutely ridiculous. It's like,
yeah,
you wouldn't go bring an old broken down car in and say, I know the engine's not going to work, but let's just give it a really great paint job. That would be
right.
stupid. So
The
I'll get
classic.
off my high horse.
No, you're absolutely right. Because I get guys who, women too, but guys are like, they want to, get better, and they're asking about testosterone. I'm like, well, are you tell me about your sleep? Are you working out? Tell me about your diet. Because I just tell them, I said, look, if you're going to sit on the couch all day and eat McDonald's, not work out, and you want testosterone to get big muscles, I'm not your guy. It's not going to work. I'm telling you right now, it's not going to work. So no, I laid down the law. Trust me.
Good.
So yeah, peptides, but sometimes there are people who are very metabolically ill, for lack of a better word, who sometimes they're so bad or broken that metabolically they need that to get them into the gym. So sometimes I will start them on a hormone or a peptide just to get them feeling better, and then they'll start working out, and then it's a beautiful cycle and it starts building on itself. But a lot of times, again, start with the foundation and build. And usually hormonal is the issue first, especially with women who will come to me wanting to lose weight or having thyroid issues or PCOS. Insulin, it's huge, as you know, it's a big problem. So start with that. Peptides are a great additional strategy, and there are so many out there that we can use that do so many different things. So they're signaling molecules, they're protein molecules. Just think of them as a truncated or a short protein molecule. I always give the analogy of insulin. Everybody knows what insulin is. Well, insulin's a peptide. It's a protein molecule. It's one of the first ones that was discovered back in the 1920s. So these peptides are now, we make them in our body. So basically what we've done is just basically make them in the lab, just like we make testosterone and thyroid hormone, and they can be used to enhance the body's functions in various ways. So they act mostly as signaling molecules. They do different things in the cell to get them to work. So, and there's a bunch. So probably the couple of the most common ones that I use are there's a recovery healing peptide called BPC-157. And another one there's a couple of, like, for example, CJC and ipamorelin are two examples of, I always call it the growth hormone peptides. So, because everybody knows what growth hormone is, been around forever, back in the 80s, all the big stars were using it to get lean and put on muscle, et cetera. So, and growth hormone has its place, but it's harder to use. It's a little bit more expensive, few more side effects. So the peptides can stimulate your body to release more of its own growth hormone. We make plenty of it, even in our old age, but we just can't release it. So it gets it to release it at the right time in the right circadian fashion to enhance its benefits. But it has benefits on the body other than just the growth hormone, which I can get into later. But basically, the whole point of it is to get the body to heal, to grow, to get the cell functioning at the cellular level, to get the tissues functioning better, which is going to get the organs working better. And then your body's going to be working better. So again, it's like as I mentioned, building that house. So the peptides are a great way to enhance certain functions and to do specific actions. Like, for example, some people have gut issues, leaky gut issues, or all these, it's prevalent nowadays, can heal the gut. Others can be helpful for healing. As I mentioned, with the BPC, can heal soft tissue injuries, gut issues, gut inflammation, acid reflux. There's others that are helpful for brain function, enhancing brain function. If I have like a professional athlete or a shooter, someone who really needs to have that calm brain but focused brain, and there's peptides that can help with that, or they can be helpful for prevention of brain cognitive issues, Alzheimer's, dementias, Parkinson's, and things like this. So the peptides are a great addition to our stacks of whether using nutraceuticals or hormones and everything to basically enhance the body and to get some of those goals achieved that we just can't get with just the basics.
Yeah, and it seems like long term, although we'll see if this can happen, like they really replace the need for a lot of these pharmaceuticals.
Yes.
Now
correct.
we'll see if the companies let that happen. Because
big pharma's on a tear right now to try to get rid of them all and get rid of
I know.
They don't want us being healthy. They want their pills and sick medicine, and it's scary and it's sad. It's all at the same time. It's a lot of economics and politics, which is unfortunate.
Yeah, which is ridiculous that there is politics and health, but we've certainly seen it over the last couple of years. Well, what I love is getting back to the basics and showing how the basics can make such a profound difference, especially as we're aging. So thank you for all that. And I know you're going to gift everyone a guide on muscle growth. So I'm going to put that I don't even think we've had a Dr. Eric yet. So I'm going to put jjvirgin.com/Dr. Eric, DRERIC, and we'll put it there so everyone can grab it, and then they'll be able to learn more about you too. There you go. Dr. Eric, the fitness physician. And for those of you in Ohio, you can pop over and see him. And I think you've got courses online too, don't you?
I do have courses online. I'm going to be launching my lifestyle cellular nutrition and fitness course, and then we'll be doing a new telemedicine program. As I do a lot of telemedicine, but one specifically, as I mentioned, for women and fat loss.
Nice.
All the other stuff that I do for men and women. So at drprimex.com is my website. So happy to help anyone.
We will put that all into the show notes. It sounds like you're in a bowling alley over there, by the way.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I was like, what is going on over there?
The wind is picking up out here. You can see all the...
I was like, something's going on. It's like, literally, where is it?
Outside. I'm at home right now. I came outside because I didn't want my dogs to bark in the middle of the show.
Got it.
I thought this would
all
be
right. and then the bowling started.
Right.
Okay, so perfect. Again, it's jjvirgin.com/Dr. Eric. And thank you so much for hanging out with me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on. It was a lot of fun.
Okay, so eat more protein, lift heavy weights. That's my mantra for today. And make sure that you recover even more than you lift. And I'll tell you, when you're lifting heavy weights, you need the recovery. So my workout routine now really is heavy weights, then I'll rotate in some easy cardio and walking, and I'll rotate in, I do HIIT training as well, as you know, and I rotate in some hot yoga. Shout out to Camp Yoga in Tampa. I have a love-hate relationship with you, but pretty amazing place. And so those are the things that you're going to want to be doing and incorporating in. And again, you can get that muscle growth guide at jjvirgin.com/DRERIC, Dr. Eric. And if you've not yet subscribed to the show, make sure you do so you do not miss anything. Subscribe to jj.com. See you next time.